In 1963, a man in central Turkey was renovating his home. He knocked down a wall in his cellar, and behind it, instead of solid rock, he found a dark passage, a tunnel cut by hand, leading down into the earth. He followed it, and what he found beneath his own house did not make sense. Rooms, corridors, stairways carved into the rock, going down and down and down, stables for animals, kitchens with soot still on the ceilings, wells, chapels, vast halls, level after level after level, sinking more than 60 meters into the ground, an entire city hidden beneath the village that could have sheltered 20,000 people and all their livestock, sealed off from the world above by great rolling stone doors that could only be locked from the inside. It had been there for thousands of years, and the people living on the surface had no idea it existed. Who carved a city this deep into solid rock with nothing but hand tools? How did they breathe so far underground? And what were they so afraid of that they built an entire world beneath the earth to hide in? This is the story of Derinkuyu. To understand the underground cities, you first have to understand the strange land above them. This is Cappadocia, in the high heart of Anatolia. Millions of years ago, great volcanoes buried this region under deep layers of ash. Over time, that ash hardened into a soft stone called tuff, and then wind and water went to work on it. The result is one of the most surreal landscapes on Earth. Tall cones of pale rock rise from the valleys like a forest of stone. People call them fairy chimneys. The whole land looks frozen, dreamlike, almost unreal. But the people who lived here saw something practical. This tuff is soft enough to carve with simple tools, yet it hardens on contact with air. You can dig into it with a pick and a chisel, and what you carve will stand for thousands of years. So they carved. They cut homes and churches into the cliffs. They hollowed out the fairy chimneys and lived inside them. And then, somewhere in the deep past, they began to do something far stranger. They started digging not into the hillsides, but straight down. Derinkuyu is the deepest underground city ever found in Cappadocia. Its name, fittingly, means deep well. From the surface, there is almost nothing to see, a few openings in the rock among ordinary houses. But step inside, and you descend into a labyrinth that drops through as many as 18 levels, more than 60 meters down into the earth. This was not a cellar or a hiding hole. It was a true city. Archaeologists have found stables for cattle and donkeys near the top, where the animals were kept. Below them, communal kitchens, their ceilings still blackened by ancient fires. Storage rooms for grain and supplies. Presses for making wine and oil. Wells for fresh water. Stone troughs. Niches for oil lamps. Even a room believed to be a school with a vaulted ceiling. And deep down, on one of the lowest levels, a great hall shaped like a cross. A church, cut from the living rock far below the world of the sun. At its fullest, Derinkuyu could hold an estimated 20,000 people together with their food and their animals for months at a time, an entire population swallowed into the ground. And here is the part that should not have been possible. Bury 20,000 people and their livestock 60 meters underground behind sealed doors, and within hours the air should turn foul and deadly. They should have suffocated. They did not. Because whoever built Derinkuyu were not simply diggers, they were engineers. The city is threaded with more than 50 narrow ventilation shafts, driven vertically through all the levels, drawing fresh air down from the surface to the deepest rooms. Some of these shafts doubled as wells, reaching water far below, so that the city could be supplied with both air and water, without ever opening a door to the enemy above. The temperature, deep in the rock, stays cool and steady all year round, perfect for storing food and for surviving a long siege. Every detail, from the airflow to the wells to the layout, was designed for one purpose: to let a whole community vanish underground and stay alive there, hidden for as long as the danger lasted. This was not panic digging. This was a plan, refined over generations. But the most chilling feature of Derinkuyu is its doors. At key points along the tunnels sit enormous circular slabs of stone, like great millstones, each weighing up to half a ton. They were rolled across the passageways to seal off a level completely. And here is the detail that tells you everything. These doors could only be moved from one side, the inside. There is a small hole in the center of each one, possibly to brace it shut, or to see and strike at anyone on the other side. An attacker in the narrow tunnel could not budge the stone. The people sealed behind it could hold it fast. Picture it. Word comes that raiders are approaching. The whole population of the village drops down into the earth, taking their animals, their food, their children. Behind them, level by level, the great stones roll shut, and then they wait in the lamplit dark 60 meters down, listening and hoping the enemy above will give up and move on. Whoever built this lived in real, recurring terror of something on the surface. So, who were they? The honest answer is that we are not completely sure, and that uncertainty is part of the mystery. The oldest parts may be very old indeed. Some researchers believe the first tunnels were cut by the Phrygians, an Anatolian people, around 2,500 years ago. Others suspect the work began even earlier, perhaps with the Hittites, the great Bronze Age power of Anatolia, fleeing some forgotten enemy. There are no inscriptions, no foundation stone, no written record that says, "We built this in this year for this reason." What is clearer is what came later. Over many centuries, the cities were expanded, deepened, and connected, generation after generation, enlarging the world below. The greatest expansion came in the Byzantine era, when this region was Christian and the people had powerful new reasons to hide. The underground cities of Cappadocia were not built in a single moment of fear. They were carved slowly across thousands of years by people who learned again and again that the safest place was underground. Because Cappadocia sits on a crossroads, and for most of its history, that was a dangerous place to be. Army after army marched across this plateau, Persians and the armies of Alexander, Roman legions, and in the early Christian centuries, persecution, when followers of a forbidden faith carved hidden churches into the rock and slipped underground to pray and to survive. Then, from the 7th century came the long wars between the Byzantine Empire and the Arab caliphates. For 200 years, raiders swept across Cappadocia almost every year, burning, looting, taking captives. And each time the watchmen saw dust on the horizon, the people did what their ancestors had taught them. They went down. They rolled the stones shut. They disappeared. Centuries later, they hid from Mongols and from other raiders still. The underground cities were used again and again by people who could not win in the open, but who could simply refuse to be found. These were not the homes of a lost civilization. They were the survival machines of ordinary people in a land where the surface was never truly safe. And Derinkuyu is not alone. Beneath Cappadocia lies an entire hidden world. More than 200 underground cities and shelters have been found across the region, and many more are surely still sealed and forgotten under the fields and houses. The nearby city of Kaimakli is almost as vast, and there is evidence that some of these cities were linked. A tunnel, said to run for kilometers, may once have connected Derinkuyu to its neighbor, so that people could move, unseen, from one refuge to the next, entirely beneath the earth. Stand in a quiet Cappadocian village today, and you may be standing on the roof of a buried city. For most of history, no one remembered they were there. They were sealed, abandoned, and slowly forgotten, until a man knocked down a wall in his cellar, and the past breathed out of the dark. Today, you can walk down into Derinkuyu. You can run your hand along chisel marks left by people who died thousands of years ago. Stand in the cross-shaped church far below the sun, and put your shoulder against one of the great rolling stones that once sealed a whole world away from the light. And in the cold and the silence, the questions remain. Exactly who first cut into this rock, and when, we may never know. We can only read the fear in what they built. The depth of it, the engineering of it, the doors that lock from the inside. It is one of the strangest monuments humanity has ever made. Not a temple raised toward the heavens, but a city dug down into the dark by people whose greatest hope was simply to be hidden and to survive. The fairy chimneys still stand in the sun above, and beneath them, the deep, patient dark of Derinkuyu waits, as it always has, for the next time the world above becomes too dangerous to live in. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more of the world's strangest mysteries.